Could you give us a brief about what Gyanshala is all about?
Well, Gyanshala has two aspects. One is it is an instrument or is an experiment or a program to find a solution to provide good quality education on a very large scale, and that has the implication that normal solution is to find out a team of good teachers who can ensure good quality education. But we recognize on a large scale, India has around 220 million children in the school going age. Now, assuming that good education would require a ratio, let's say 1 teacher for 20 children, so we require 10 million good teachers, which is not going to happen at least in the near future. So we needed to find out a solution to this problem, good quality education using the modest quality teacher. So Gyanshala has one part whereby it tries to find out what is the way to run a school program with a modest quality teacher, which would enable the first generation learner from the target group that we were, essentially poor children, attain the learning levels which are comparable to so-called good schools, which will open the future direction for them to carry on in their life, because that's the only way for them to really come out of the poverty trap. So we not only to develop, we need to first of all experiment and find out and then demonstrate, first of all, to our own satisfaction. Have we found a solution which works for Indian conditions? And once we think that we are satisfied with adequate amount of independent assessment about the quality of the program, etc., then we use this program also as way to promote this solution at the larger scale, whether it is government school system or the low-cost private schools.
What are these kind of solutions that you develop? Like, have there been any that, yes, have been proved and you have been able to scale up? Any solution that you have?
Well, scaling up, see, what was very clear, when you want to scale up something to, let us say, tens of thousand children or million children, something, then demonstrating itself means that it cannot be done for 100 children. Nobody will bother, nobody will buy that solution. So you yourself must reach a level which will be considered as worth being considered seriously. So which means if we want to actually impact the government, then we should be operating not with 100 or 200 children. We should ourselves reach a size of 10, 20, 30, 40,000 children. So scaling up for us, it took us long. We started with, let's say, 300 children in the year one. So from 300 to 45,000 that we reached itself was a scaling up in the sense, but that was scaling up the solution itself, not scaling up in the sense of taking the solution to the much larger government system or the private school system.
So what have these solutions been like? Technology solutions?
Actually, it's very interesting. See, that was a very tempting thought that technology is probably the way to find out. And given my background, which was partly electronics engineering, I started my career in the ISRO, where I was a part of this very large site experiment. Okay. So technology sort of came to us in some sense a natural kind of a thought. And luckily for us, in 2001, we won a World Bank kind of a project grant, to actually try out the technology assisted education in the primary stage, for which we had a partnership with the MIT USA. They had just set up a MIT Media Lab in Asia, in India, and so we became partner with them. We tried out with the technology enabled kind of a solution. So we were, for 4 years, we conducted a proper experiment with a good independent assessment, and our conclusion was that it was not working effectively, at least at the lower grade, primary grade.
So what technology did you use?
So what we do, we had basically a laptop, the tabletop computer, and we designed software in such a manner that the one machine can be used by 2 children in parallel. Like one child could work on the keyboard, other child could work on the mouse. So just to economize the access to the thing, and that's what we did basically. And normal class plus, in addition, we had 1 hour of practice on the computer. So we designed software and etc. And we, from the very beginning, one of the disciplines we had to impose on ourselves is that we will get independent assessment organizations to find out what is happening to the program and give us a honest feedback.
Yes.
So, and we had a very good technology partner, as I told you. Nobody can be better than MIT USA. So, Media Lab of it. but our results were, when the independent assessments told that there is a moderate improvement, but that is not something which is really worth taking seriously. Then we did a worldwide study of the experience of technology in the school in various countries like Western countries, Australia, Singapore, Hong Kong, and some theoretical studies like Israel or in Switzerland, etc. What was happening, and all the research showed that in the lower grade, which is the up to maybe grade 5, etc., technology does not improve quality of education. This is, and I don't think that, of course, we started in 2001 or 2001 to 6, so obviously technology has changed, and I'm sure the new solutions have come. But we keep on checking this thing from the research worldwide. To the best of our knowledge, there is not a technology-enabled education effective up to grade 5 to 6. It can help the quality of education on higher grade when you're close to secondary education, but not below that. And our concern is, of course, the foundation. Unless we strengthen the foundation, what is the point of working on this thing?
So then, modest teachers, modest quality teachers, technology not useful. What is it that Gyanshala then supports with?
Child's mind. Now, luckily, God has given every child, it doesn't matter poor or whatever, same capacity to learn. So if you can leverage the child's mind's capacity to learn, that is the solution.
So is there solution?
So yeah, so say for example, we recognize that let's say child certainly learns from hearing something, from adult, whether parents or the teacher, etc. But child learns a lot by doing the things. Okay, and child learns a lot by interacting with the peer group.
Okay.
So we make sure that in our classroom, teacher teaching, or let's say teacher is speaking, is not more than, let's say 30% of the time.
Right.
The remaining time actually goes in child working himself or herself, or child working with the peer group. So we just change. So which means a typical traditional class where almost 80% of the class time, teacher is speaking, teacher is teaching. In Gyanshala, teacher is teaching only 30% of the time, and 70% time, children are spending, let's say, learning, using their own mind, which God has given them as much as to the child. In India, the salary component of the total school budget is almost 85% plus. Maybe in Western countries 80%, but it is of less that order. Teacher salary basically.
Yes.
Teacher or the senior teacher salary, etc. In Gyanshala, the salary of the teacher and the training we provide to the teacher, which is in a way enabling teacher to become better, is 40%.
Okay.
20% is, of course, the rental of the room where we run. So let's say capital expenditure or replacement of capital expenditure, because we don't have our own buildings. But learning material is almost as 20%.
Okay.
More than 20% of our budget goes in just the material which child handles. So that just shows the kind of a emphasis we give on child's capacity to learn by herself and in partnership with other children. We have access to some of India, and I would say the world's best linguists, who will tell how does a child's mind learn or deals with the language. So ultimately, if you see any curriculum, at least at the school level, consists of essentially 4 capabilities. How do you deal with the language? How do you deal with the deductive thinking, which is what mathematics is all about? It is essentially deduction. Then you have inductive thinking, which is what most of our experimental science is all about, right? Which is science, inductive, and also is partly deduction also, because then you take over one over another implication. And lastly, an integrative perspective. So essentially there are four kind of mental capabilities which essentially go in the education system. So we have to find out what is the way, how does human mind program to deal with each of these capabilities, and in understanding that, we tap the best knowledge in India, sometime in the world too. And they, in some sense, they are not our employees, such people. Of course, we can't afford, but they are available to us. So they are also part of the Gyanshala team in some sense. We just wanted to tell others, what is solution. So in the beginning, I spent from 90. I went to UK in 95. So from 96 to 99, I was essentially, talking to various organizations, NGOs, good people in India. If you do this thing, that's the way we will solve. But we found that, all good people have their own good solutions. They will not take. It always happens, So good people often, they're smart people, they're capable people, they're thought through their issues and they come up with some solution. So they are committed to their solution. They want to work with that and try to improve over time. So it's not easy for a good person to start with a solution which is of different. So after spending 3-4 years, when we found that others are not ready to start something which in a way was some kind of revolutionary, because people were not willing to believe that you can have good education without great teachers. So that was a kind of radical kind of idea. So we ultimately were left with no alternative. If we believe that this is the solution, then we try it out. And therefore we ended up starting this program in 2000. The education is a complex thing. You do variety of things. Say, for example, in Gyanshala, we do everything which is done NCRT, which is done SCRT, which is done teacher education, which is done teacher training. We do program monitoring. We do hiring of the building. So we do everything. We have to publish our own books. So a whole range of things have to be done. Because the tradition, what is available in the marketplace is not meant for our solution. That is available for a different solution.
How have you managed to make sure that the cost of education does not exceed what the child can afford, and yet you managed to scale up your initiative?
See, because our design enables us not to have so-called excellent teacher who's expensive. Since our teacher is low cost, and then fortunately for us, our team has decided to operate at low cost. Our teams, as I told you, are very capable. The people go abroad to do, they get selected to do Fulbright Fellow, so they can earn surely much more than what they earn in Gyanshala. But for some reason, we have a low cost sort of culture, because they see there's so many of the teachers with whom they are working, they are ready to work at very low scale. So yeah, that's how it is. I think it starts because we have found out a way whereby average person is able to work or become part of a very high performing education system. Quite positive.
Your system believes in taking things slow, and you will go on and on till you find the right solution. But the tendency of population by and large is they want it fast. They want to see results really quickly, and nobody is really ready to invest in education, at the pace that you are looking at. Everyone wants the solutions and the changes to be seen very quickly. So how do you deal with that?
Well, we deal with that. You're absolutely right, and therefore I would say nobody has found solution. There's no way to find solution which is fast in education. Because it takes 1 year for every child to go to one day to next day. Nobody knows how to shorten this period 1 year into 1 month. People may claim that we can have some technology and we can fast, but there's no way, frankly.
So has that sort of caused any friction with your
Absolutely. So, it requires them to understand that it cannot be done fast. So, eventually, fortunately, while on one side everybody wants result fast, but everybody does want result. That's the bottom line. They want fast, but they want result. So eventually, what's the choice? You want result, you have an alternative me, you have some other alternative X or Y or Z. So as long as I am able to deliver result better than X, Y, Z, you have no choice. I may be slow, but I am the only alternative which delivers the result that you want. So I think that's the way it is. I think in education, there is no way you can have fast results. See, nobody has built great education institution in short period of time, nobody in the world. The biggest challenge in education is not just to find solution to the problem, it is to eventually deal with the people who think that they already have a solution. And almost every human being thinks that she or he knows solution.
Yes.
Whether it is individual, because they have educated their children. So how do you deal with the decision makers who actually do not know what is the solution, but they think that they know what is education is about?
That's a challenge.
I think it's a tough. And that problem probably doesn't exist in health, because most people believe, doctor knows better me. But in education, everybody thinks that I know what education is all about.
You had considerable experience in IRMA and Amul and the Grameen Bank. How do you bring your expertise from there to sort of put it into Gyanshala with the...
Oh, very much actually. This is a very interesting question you're asking me. And many people from the education side, they have asked me, who is your great teacher? In the sense, learning from this program. And I end up telling that the greatest teacher in designing the Gyanshala education program is Dr. Kurian. or Mohammad Yunus.
Okay.
Because their way of organizing, see what are the critical things we are doing at Gyanshala? Number one, we are enabling a modest quality teacher to become part of the system, which is a high quality performance system, right? There's a crux of the matter.
Yes.
Nobody has done this thing better than Dr. Korean in the field of dairy.
Yeah.
And nobody has done better than Mohammad Yunus in the area of microfinance. So this task, the core task, which is how do you make sure a modest quality performer become a part of the high quality system delivery. I essentially learned from Grameen and Amul only,
Yes.
which is what I probably researched as a IRMA professor basically. Yeah, sure. So it is very much. And also what is not realized that a large scale education is as much of a management challenge as of the so-called educational pedagogy and curriculum challenge.
Yes.
So it is absolutely necessary. Anybody who wants to find solution of education large scale has to know what is, let's say, done by Mohammad Yunus or Dr. Korea, or what IRMA or IMA teaches, frankly. Because only when you combine that way of solving the problem with the solving good curriculum, good pedagogy, good teachers training, you will have a large scale good education program.
20 years in Gyanshala, was there ever a time, and obviously you said education does require its consistent investment, and sometimes it's taken you maybe 6 years to just develop the curriculum and believe that it's working up to grade 3. So was there any time during it that you felt like giving it all up and like frustrated with the entire process or the time that it's taken, or almost given up because of the...
No, I think there was no frustration about the timing. With that I knew, having coming from the field of education, I knew it was going to take time. But there was at times, see, there are always problems, and we are there to solve the problem. So the addressing problem also is not frustrating or signal to withdraw. But at times when you think the things appear to be out of your control, when you feel or something which you just don't like, and there have been a couple of instances when it just felt, it's too tough. Say, for example, we ran into some resistance from the local school inspector kind of people. So 2 years back, we really had bad experience when this school inspector, they came to our classes and they almost misbehaved with my teachers. And the women teacher, young girls or women teacher, and so they are very quite vulnerable. They don't come from rich families. And they were mistreated, and they are also at times even misbehaving my children. So I really felt, and I didn't know what to do about it. They are government people basically. So that was, I think, the only time when I just felt, hey, if fortunately that phase passed and we could do something too. But if those kind of things get repeated, I'm not sure I would be able to tolerate, because if we cannot protect our teachers and the children, then I think it will be intolerable. So other than those kind of things, when it's just things are intolerable, they have not been. Of course, there are ups and downs. There have been struggles getting people, getting donors, at time dealing with the government approval.
How has it worked with you dealing with the community in India, trying to get them to, a number of them are not for educating, especially in the lower socioeconomic, educating their girls beyond a certain age, because...
That's beyond certain age, that's true. So it's number one, everybody wants child to be educated to some extent.
Yes.
So I don't think there's at all this reluctance of anybody in our society, poor, rich, etc., to educate, let's say, up to grade 6 to 8. At least when she can read, write, some communication, etc. So that is not, frankly, most of our education is get to that level only. We don't go very much into secondary, but that's true. I think there are many sections of our society who do not see education of the girls beyond elementary as birthright proposition. So we had a high school program, and that time actually we had to spend considerable effort, organizational effort, in some cases to persuade the parents of the girls to send them to even Gyanshala, though we made sure that Gyanshala classes are held within the community. We don't take them out of the community, because one of the challenges is that if the girl has to get out of the community, they are all kind of issues, because by that time girl is almost 14, 15 years old, so sensitive age. So we run the program inside the community. So this is social security, safety, etc. Even then saying, no, she has learned enough. I have to wait, no problem, no more. So we really, and the girls will come and they'll tell my teachers, so please go and talk to my father. So you have to work with them. Yeah. But if they have genuine concern is basically what the utility, and second thing, the cost, not in terms of the money, risk. So once they could be sure that there is no risk to the child, she'll learn something, and since ours is a almost free program, it is so problem is solvable. It's a problem definitely, but I think it can be solved if you are ready to find solution.
Is there this one advice that you would give to CSR heads or to CSR heads? Just one line advice that you would give them from your experience of so many years in this field.
I would say, at least in the field of education, look for the evidence of the impact.
Okay.
Because at least in education, it's very easy to make claims and difficult to test it out because impact happens after many, many years. So look for the reliable evidence of the impact. In Calcutta and it's very interior. I didn't know that in urban cities you can have those kind of difficult places to live in. But we were running our classes. So one day I went to class and I noticed there was this young girl, maybe 9-10-year-old, or this girl, and I think her body was affected by polio. So she I don't know how she came from, but she came to our class. But she couldn't use her hand. So, but she wanted to attend the school. And of course, nothing of that facility which could take care of that physically disabled children would be available in that locality. I mean, I'm sure there are some special institutions, but not to her. So she started coming, and actually she started sitting in the class, and she learned to hold pencil her toe of the foot, and started writing. And believe me, that she learned to write in 1 year's time. After 1 year, she could actually write words which you can read this word separately.
Wow.
She used to just hold pencil with her toes, and she became very skilled. So she completed grade 3.
Wow, that's amazing.
So this word has such incredible people. I mean, we did nothing. We were teaching her we were teaching her the same thing which you shared. But just imagine the spirit of this girl.
Maybe that's what was important to do, like treating her like everyone else.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I suppose.
Everyone else.
Whatever. But I think the spirit of that girl was remarkable. For her to come and sit outside the class and say, I want to study, and then pass grade 3.
What about NGOs and social enterprises? Any advice that you would give them?
If you're in the education sector, be ready for a long haul.
What about to innovators? What kind of advice would you give them?
That's true. Important. Be open to learn from others.
Thank you so much, Pankaj. It has been an absolute pleasure having this conversation with you, and we really enjoyed having you here with us in the studio.
Thanks. You asked good questions, actually.
Thank you.